that ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. Welcome, fellow Phoenixes, to the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast, where we make a daily offering to the divine by putting our past on the pyre, searching the smoke for spirituality, turning the ashes into art, adapting isolation into connection, and manifesting mental wellness. I'm your host, Ross Cessna, and together we are the Spiritual Phoenix. The intent of this show isn't to tell you what to think, but to get you to think and originally articulate yourself in a way that is uplifting. We are the artists of our lives, and today is a blank canvas. Let's collectively create a better tomorrow. And now I'd like to take a moment and focus on what we're grateful for today. Today, I'm grateful that at least in some levels, I'm able to see outside the duality of reality and start to find the oneness or the unification of what we perceive as opposites. And with that, I'll get into a couple quotes. Love is the recognition of oneness in the world of duality. And that was said by Eckhart Tolle. Excuse me. Past and future are a duality of which present is the reality. The now moment alone is eternal and real. And that was said by Wei Wu Wei. My place is the placeless. My trace is the traceless. 'Tis neither body nor soul, for I belong to the soul of the beloved. I have put duality away. I have seen that the two worlds are one. One I seek, one I know, one I see, one I call. And that was said by Rumi. So today's episode is about the dangers of duality and kind of how to break out of duality and get into that sense of oneness. I guess maybe even saying dangers of duality isn't the best way to put it. But a lot of us have this concept that the opposite of love is hate. The opposite of acceptance is fear. The opposite of light is dark. The opposite of good is evil, and so on and so forth. Well, that may appear to be the case, but the reality is they are actually unified in the sense that they are varying degrees of the same concept. And I know what you're thinking, what the hell is he talking about? Think of it like a dimmer switch, love and hate. Love would be the ultimate high end of the dimmer switch, and then hate would be the low end of it. And it's not that they're opposite, they're varying degrees of the same concept. Now, if you look at good and evil, that concept exists yet again. So consider the whole dimmer switch concept. Think about that for a minute, like what I'm actually saying. If you don't have acceptance, typically you're living in fear, but fear is a lack of acceptance. I mean, acceptance isn't necessarily a lack of fear. You can still have fear and accept a situation. But think about that concept. Now, the unifying thread, even furthermore, for all these dualistic things, if you think of all these dimmer switches on one big panel, that would be the unification of all of those things too. And where those different dimmer switches are placed, how they're set up, that's kind of like our internal thermostat, or like our internal composition for what they are, but yet they're still unified. Now, if you pull out back a little further from that, put everybody else in the world on those boards, and then put all those boards on a board. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like this other bigger panel. All of these experiences of duality that we perceive, or I should say perceive duality, are paths to finding the unity within those things and overcoming the limited mindset of dualistic thinking. Because when you look at things holistically and try to pull back to see the bigger picture and look at it from a spiritual sense, not a sense of the I, the me, or things like that, and you see it as outside circumstances that are uncomfortable, it doesn't make them less uncomfortable. But when you can perceive those situations as ways of refining yourself or ways of learning lessons, it becomes a great asset for you. And if you can continue to develop and cultivate that mindset of learning from those situations, it puts you in an optimal position to refine who you are and put you at your highest level when you can use all experiences as a teacher. That's really all I have for this kind of concept, is learn to break out of duality by finding the unification within it. I mean, even the concept of the God and Goddess, if you really look at that whole concept, when you pull it back even tighter, it's like this androgynous source type thing. If you look at the esoteric concept of Baphomet, or Baphomet as some people call it, it's the goat-headed God goddess thing with the breast, but it's also represented as male, so it's androgynous, or hermaphroditic even, where it has both sexes. But in my personal opinion, the ultimate source is androgynous, but then it breaks down into these masculine and feminine principles, just like we are a human species, but we break down into these masculine and feminine principles. But the unification in those concepts is the humanity of it. So, I don't know, with that, if you have a topic you want to hear discussed or something you want me to read or play on air on the podcast, or if you have a 1 minute or less poem you'd like me to read on the sister podcast, the Phoenix Poetry Podcast, you can call the Phoenix voicemail line at 480-535-2561. You can follow me on social media at Spiritual Phoenix. I offer free daily tarot readings at Spiritual Phoenix Tarot. As I had said, I have the Phoenix Poetry Podcast. You can find that on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Blubrry, Soundcloud, as long as SoundCloud stays up. If it does, or if it doesn't go down, you can visit the website at thespiritualphoenix.com. I love, respect, and appreciate all of you. Love and light. I'm going to put this episode on the pyre. Peace.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't the spiritual world, it isn't the material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply